Hi, I'm Dibley, and today I'm going to talk to you about my remote uncouplers for 00 gauge tension lock couplings. You can see one here. It's disguised as a barrow crossing near my cattle grid. And I've got a slight problem with it. Although it goes up, it doesn't come down. So I need to take it apart and give it a little bit of a service. And while I'm doing that, I'll go through the process of how I build them. And this is the mechanism for the uncoupler that's causing me trouble. As you can see, if I push that down, it doesn't fully return. I have to push it back a little bit. So what we've got is we've got the control rod, which I've just made from a 3mm rod from a closed area that had broken. We've got the pivots, which is I've just made from a simple L bracket available from B&Q, Screwfix, etc, etc. Through one of the holes is a small rubber grommet which allows the rod to pass through and pivot on, and just sort of softens the whole movement slightly because it's not rattling around and metal on metal and wearing away. I have got these reinforcing bars because over this length they do flex. To be fair, if I was to do it again, I probably wouldn't use this. It is a bit of a pain. So the reinforcing bars, again, are the same type of rod. I've used electrical connector blocks, which I've drilled out very slightly and then epoxy resined in. It's not pretty and it's not very overly effective, and it does, as you can see in the middle, it still allows flex. So I probably wouldn't go for that again if I was to do this another time. At this end, where your finger is, I've got a female 9.5mm Lucar. The plan is, if I was to, if it had a permanent place to use, I'd probably get the male equivalents and put them in, and that would give me a nice little lever to use. But then I can take them back out, so when it's in storage, it's all nice and flush to the end. But actually, you can get your finger in there. It's not too bad. It is a bit fiddly, but it's not too bad. So this end is another electrical connector. This is a ring connector with I think a 3.2 or 3.4mm hole in it, in the ring. That's an M3 button head screw with a washer, then it goes through the ring, then it's another washer, and that is Loctited into the brass portion of another electrical connector. I think they're already 3mm, so I didn't need to tap them out. Pretty sure that was 3mm. And then on the other end of that, we've got the a button head that screws into the push rod, and the push rod is soldered to the pad. And the return motion for it, for the pad and push rod, is done with a spring from a cheap biro from Asda. There was a pack of 10 biros for about £1.99 or something like that. I've stripped all the springs out of them. We're still using the pens. They don't tend to retract very well, but we're still using them. It's fine because the spring tension is quite good. This one here is a different spring. I actually bought that spring off eBay, but it worked out. It was cheaper to go, rather than buying a length of spring and cutting it, it was actually cheaper to go and buy a pack of biros and just steal the springs from them. So anyway, let's undo this because I need to take this apart and see why it's so sticky, and I'll show you what it's like when it's in bits. Okay, so that was a little fun undoing that because I've used blue thread lock on there because that's all I had. Blue thread lock's probably too strong. Should have used pink thread lock. I can't remember if it's 242 or 232 or something. I can't remember the exact number, but that would have probably been better on there. That was a struggle to get out, and I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually stripping the thread on the brass coming out because it did feel very sticky on the way out. Right, I'll show you what the pads are made of. So you have to excuse me, I'm trying to do this through the camera. So the pad is a bit of 2mm brass rod, just bought off eBay. Sorry, no, the rod is 2mm brass. The pad itself is copper strip. I think it was about it was either 1/8 thick or 1/8 of an inch, or 3mm thick and about 9.5 or something around that sort of size across the width. That's cut into 25mm lengths. Drilled a hole right through the centre, 2mm, to take the 2mm rod. That's soldered in. There is a Pico track pin or Hornby track pin. Can't remember which one. One of the little track pins. There's maybe a Hornby one. So I drilled whatever size that is, might be 1.5 mil, can't actually remember off the top of my head, for that to go through. I also recessed the top very slightly with a slightly larger drill to countersink it, and then when it's soldered, the head goes in flush with the top. And then on top of that, I bond a very thin piece of wood, which I got from a Camembert cheese box. I think I've got some here actually. So there's an example of it. It's quite thin. This actually might not be Camembert. This might be something else, but it's pretty much the same sort of thickness. So it's probably about 0.5 millimetre thick. And that just means I can get the wood effect. I then score the board marks on it. I don't know if it's going to focus. I think it's struggling to focus. Sorry. Let's score the board marks onto it, and then I paint it very dark brown, and then dry brush with a bit of light grey, and then probably a couple more colours of thin washes just to sort of tone it down a bit, and a bit more light grey dry brushing. So that's the actual pad and the actuating rod, or the push rod rather, and then obviously we've got a couple of washers and the spring. As you can see, you recognise those springs from ball pens. So now that push rod sits in a hole in the board, and the hole in the board is lined with PTFE tube. So I'm pretty sure that is a 3 mil outside diameter and a 2 mil inside diameter PTFE tube. It might be 4 mil outside diameter and 2 mil inside, but either way, the inside diameter is 2, and the outside is whatever I could get at the time, and then drill a hole in the board and lightly glue that in very carefully. And then once it's in, because it'll probably distort very slightly, then you just need to slightly ream the inside of it out. You might just be able to push this in and out a few times and it'll eventually become quite free. But I've also got an issue here where it's not overly free. It's probably because I suspect the top has got some PVA glue stuck around it from when I did the ballasting. So I will turn that over and have a bit of a look in a minute. Once I've worked out what it is, but I'll probably just give the push rod a little clean up with a bit of emery paper or fine wet and dry, or maybe some Scotch-Brite, and hopefully that will sort that out a little bit. In addition to the hole that the main push rod goes through, we also need a very small hole just for the little pin to go through. So this pin, the idea of this pin is to stop the whole thing from rotating. Otherwise, the pad will rotate, and instead of being parallel with the rails, it will eventually turn round and be fouling the rails. And obviously, being copper, that's very conductive, and you really don't want anything conductive touching both rails. So the little pin is just an anti-rotation pin. So there's a very small hole just drilled in the baseboard as well for that to go down through. I've not bothered lining that with anything. I could probably make it a little bit bigger maybe, and then this would maybe it could be this that is stopping my pad from sliding up and down as well as it could be. So I might just open that out a very slightly bit. We don't want to open it out too much because we don't want too much rotation on this. Also because the flanges might hit the sides. Yes. That's another little feature that you need to consider about a way of stopping the actual whole pad from rotating. One point of note is the flat that I have filed onto the push rod. This allows the 3 mil button head screw to tighten tightly onto the flat. You do need to make sure that you orientate the flat correctly for the angle of the control rod and the angle of your pad. So the best thing to do is just to assemble it all in the correct place, pinch up the screws slightly, and you will see a mark on the actual push rod itself, and then file away. Just file a small flat on it first, then reassemble, make sure everything lines up and it's not turning the pad round at an angle that it shouldn't be, make any corrections, and then eventually file it in. You only need to file it in about 0.5 millimetre maximum into the depth. That should be enough. Basically, once there's a bit of a flat on it that the screw can bed down onto, that should be enough. So there you go, that is the mechanism for my push rods for my uncoupling pads and push rods and everything, for the remote uncoupling for my tension lock, ordinary Hornby Dapol style tension lock couplings. I hope you may have found this useful, and if you did, then then good stuff. Okay, thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.